The challenge. The azure skies of Novaterra stretched endlessly above the bustling city of Unity, a testament to humanity's resilience and adaptability. It had been just over a decade since the last ships carrying Earth's refugees had touched down on this alien world, welcomed by the compassionate Zephyrians who had offered humanity a new home among the stars. Unity was a marvel of cross-species cooperation, its skyline a blend of familiar human architecture and the flowing, organic structures favored by the Zephyrians. The city hummed with activity as hover vehicles zipped between buildings and anti-gravity platforms, ferried groups of humans and aliens alike between various levels of the metropolis. Dr. Amelia Chen stood at the window of her office in the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Center, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. At 35, she was one of the younger department heads, but her expertise in human physiology and her passion for sports had made her an ideal candidate for bridging the gap between human and Zephyrian physical cultures. A soft chime from her desk interrupted her musings. "Dr. Chen," came the melodious voice of her Zephyrian assistant, Lyra. "The council is ready for your presentation." Amelia took a deep breath, smoothing down her sleek blazer. "Thank you, Lyra. I'm on my way." As she made her way through the winding corridors of the center, Amelia couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today's presentation could change everything, or it could fall flat on its face. The doors to the council chamber slid open silently, revealing a circular room dotted with holographic displays. Around a central table sat 5 Zephyrians and 5 humans, their faces a mix of curiosity and polite interest. "Dr. Chen," greeted Counselor Zor, his iridescent skin shimmering slightly as he inclined his head. "We understand you have a proposal for a new cultural exchange event." Amelia nodded, activating her holographic display with a wave of her hand. "Thank you, Counselor. Distinguished members of the Council, I come before you today with a proposal that I believe will not only foster greater understanding between our species, but also challenge some of our preconceptions about each other." The hologram flickered to life, showing images of human marathon runners crossing finish lines, their faces etched with exhaustion and triumph. "I propose that we organize the first interspecies marathon of Unity," Amelia announced, her voice strong and clear. A ripple of murmurs passed through the council. Marathon running was a concept entirely foreign to the Zephyrians, whose society had long since moved past the need for such physical exertion. "Dr. Chen," spoke up Counselor Ilara, her large, opalescent eyes blinking slowly. "While we appreciate the spirit of your proposal, I'm afraid I don't quite understand the purpose. Why would anyone wish to run such a great distance?" Amelia had anticipated this question. "Counselor Ilara, the marathon is more than just a test of physical endurance. It's a celebration of the human spirit, of our ability to push beyond our perceived limits. It's about setting a seemingly impossible goal and achieving it through determination and willpower." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But more than that, I believe this event could be a unique opportunity for our species to learn from each other. The Zephyrians could experience firsthand an important aspect of human culture, while we humans could learn from the Zephyrian approach to physical challenges." Counselor Marcus leaned forward, his weathered face creased in thought. "It's an intriguing idea, Dr. Chen. But how do you propose to make this fair? The Zephyrians have a clear physical advantage over us." A smile played at the corners of Amelia's lips. "That's where things get interesting, Counselor. You see, a marathon isn't just about raw physical power or speed. It's about pacing, strategy, and mental fortitude. I believe this event could surprise us all." The council chamber fell silent as the members considered her words. Finally, Counselor Zor spoke up. "It's an unconventional proposal, to be sure. But perhaps that's exactly what we need. A true test of interspecies cooperation and understanding." He turned to his fellow council members. "I move that we approve Dr. Chen's proposal for this interspecies marathon." All in favor. One by one, hands and tentacles raised in agreement. Amelia felt a surge of elation as the motion passed unanimously. "Excellent," Jor said, a hint of excitement in his usually calm voice. "Dr. Chen, you have the Council's approval. We look forward to seeing this event come to fruition." As Amelia left the Council chamber, her mind was already racing with plans. She had won the first battle, but the real challenge was just beginning. Weeks passed in a flurry of activity as news of the interspecies marathon spread throughout Unity. The response was more enthusiastic than Amelia had dared to hope. Humans eagerly signed up, excited for the chance to participate in a beloved Earth tradition on their new home. The Zephyrians, while initially puzzled, were intrigued by the challenge and determined to show their support for interspecies cooperation. Amelia found herself at the center of a whirlwind of preparations, overseeing everything from course design to safety measures. It was during one of her meetings with the event organizing committee that she met Zach Snell, a young Zephyrian athlete who had become one of the most vocal supporters of the marathon among his people. "Dr. Chen," Zach Snell greeted her, his tall, lithe form towering over her as they shook hands. "I wanted to personally thank you for this opportunity. My people are quite excited about the prospect of this challenge." Amelia smiled up at him, noting the confident gleam in his silvery eyes. "I'm glad to hear it, Zach Snell. How are the Zephyrian participants finding the training?" A look of confusion passed over Zach Snell's features. "Training? I'm not sure I understand. We are naturally far more physically capable than humans. Surely, we don't need to train for this event." Amelia blinked, taken aback by his response. "Zach Snell, a marathon is 4.2195 kilometers. It's not just about being fast or strong. It requires endurance, pacing, and mental fortitude. Even the most elite human runners train extensively for months before a marathon." Zach Snell's confusion only seemed to deepen. "But Dr. Chen, we Zephyrians can easily cover such distances. Our physical capabilities far exceed those of humans. I mean no disrespect, but I believe you may be underestimating us." Amelia felt a mix of amusement and concern. She had expected some cultural misunderstandings, but this level of overconfidence could lead to problems. "Zach Snell, I urge you and your fellow participants to take this seriously. A marathon is unlike anything you've experienced before. It would be wise to prepare properly." The young Zephyrian nodded politely, but Amelia could see that her words hadn't truly registered. "Of course, Dr. Chen. We will consider your advice, but I assure you, we are more than ready for this challenge." As Zach Snell left, Amelia couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Zephyrians' confidence in their physical superiority was not entirely misplaced. They were indeed stronger and faster than humans in many ways. But they were severely underestimating the nature of a marathon. She made a mental note to increase the number of aid stations along the route and to brief the medical team on potential Zephyrian physiological responses to extreme endurance events. Something told her they might be needed. The day of the marathon dawned clear and cool, perfect conditions for the race. Amelia stood at the starting line, watching as humans and Zephyrians alike stretched and prepared for the challenge ahead. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of excitement, nervousness, and friendly competition. Among the human participants, Amelia spotted Jake Torres, a former Olympic marathoner who had been instrumental in helping organize the event. Jake was busy giving last-minute advice to a group of human runners, his weathered face serious as he spoke about pacing and hydration. In stark contrast, the Zephyrian participants seemed almost carefree. They stood in small groups, their iridescent skin gleaming in the morning light, looking more like they were preparing for a casual jog than a grueling marathon. Zach Snell approached Amelia, a confident smile on his face. "Dr. Chen, the day has finally arrived. I must admit, I'm quite looking forward to experiencing this human tradition." Amelia nodded, still concerned about the Zephyrians' lack of preparation. "Zach Snell, I hope you and your fellow participants have taken my advice about pacing yourselves. A marathon is not a sprint. It's a long, challenging journey." Zach Snell's smile never wavered. Of course, Dr. Chen. We understand. But I assure you, we are more than capable of handling this challenge. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we set some new records today. Before Amelia could respond, the call came for all participants to take their positions. As she watched the runners line up, humans and Zephyrians side by side, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. This marathon was about to become a lesson in cross-species understanding, though perhaps not in the way she had originally envisioned. The starting gun fired, and the race began. In a blur of motion, the Zephyrians shot forward, quickly taking the lead. Their long, powerful strides carried them effortlessly ahead of the human runners, who settled into a steady, measured pace. As the participants disappeared around the first bend, Amelia shared a knowing look with Jake. The real race was just beginning, and the true test lay not in these first few kilometers, but in the long, grueling miles that lay ahead. The interspecies marathon of unity was underway, and with it, a journey of discovery that would challenge the preconceptions of both humans and Zephyrians alike. As Amelia turned to make her way to the first checkpoint, she couldn't help but wonder what surprises this day would bring. The race unfolds. The first checkpoint of the interspecies marathon of unity bustled with activity as volunteers prepared water stations and medical tents. Dr. Amelia Chen arrived just as the lead group of runners came into view. As expected, the Zephyrians were far ahead, their graceful forms gliding effortlessly along the course. Amelia's brow furrowed as she watched them pass. The aliens showed no signs of fatigue, their pace still as quick as it had been at the starting line. Behind them, the first human runners appeared, led by Jake Torres. Unlike the Zephyrians, the humans moved with a measured, steady rhythm, their faces set in expressions of focused determination. As Jake passed the checkpoint, he caught Amelia's eye and gave a slight nod. The message was clear. Everything was going according to plan, at least for the humans. Zach Snell was among the lead group of Zephyrians. As he passed, he called out to Amelia, his voice filled with excitement. "Dr. Chen, this is exhilarating. We're making excellent time." Amelia forced a smile, but concern gnawed at her. "Pace yourself, Zach Snell. Remember, there's still a long way to go." But her words seemed to fall on deaf ears as the Zephyrians sped past, their confident smiles unwavering. Amelia turned to Dr. Lyra, her Zephyrian medical colleague who stood nearby, monitoring the runner's vital signs. "Lyra, what are you seeing?" Amelia asked, nodding towards the retreating forms of the Zephyrian runners. Lyra's large, opalescent eyes blinked rapidly as she studied her holographic display. "Their vitals are interesting, Dr. Chen. Heart rates and respiratory functions are elevated, but still within normal parameters for intense physical activity. However, their energy expenditure is much higher than anticipated. If they maintain this pace—" She trailed off, her expression troubled. Amelia nodded grimly. "They're burning through their resources too quickly. They've never had to manage their energy over such a long distance before." As the last of the runners passed through the checkpoint, Amelia and Lyra made their way to a waiting hover vehicle. They needed to reach the next checkpoint quickly to monitor the situation. At the 15-kilometer mark, the race's dynamics began to shift. The Zephyrians still held the lead, but their pace had noticeably slowed. Some had begun to show signs of fatigue, their once smooth strides becoming less coordinated. Zach Snell arrived at the checkpoint, his earlier exuberance replaced by a look of confusion and growing concern. "Dr. Chen," he panted as he grabbed a water pouch. "Something's wrong. I feel tired." "How is this possible?" Amelia approached him, her voice gentle but firm. "Zach Snell, this is what I was trying to warn you about. A marathon isn't just about speed or strength. It's about endurance and pacing. Your body is telling you that you've been pushing too hard." Realization dawned on Zach Snell's face, quickly followed by determination. "I see. Then we must adapt. We will overcome this challenge." As Zaxnell continued on, Amelia couldn't help but admire the Zephyrian spirit. They were facing an entirely new kind of physical challenge, one their naturally superior physiology hadn't prepared them for, yet they were determined to push through. Meanwhile, the human runners had begun to close the gap. Jake Torres passed through the checkpoint, looking tired but steady. "How are our alien friends doing?" he asked Amelia as he grabbed a water bottle. "They're learning some hard lessons about long-distance running," Amelia replied, "but they're adaptable. This race is far from over." Jake nodded, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "Good. It wouldn't be much of a race if they didn't give us a real challenge." With that, he was off again, his pace unwavering. As the day wore on, the true nature of the marathon began to reveal itself. The Zephyrians, who had started so confidently, found themselves struggling with concepts foreign to their experience. Muscle fatigue, energy depletion, and the mental challenge of pushing through physical discomfort. By the halfway point, the lead had changed hands several times. A small group of Zephyrians, including Zaxnell, had managed to adapt their pace and were now running alongside the lead human runners. The mutual respect between the species was palpable as they encouraged each other, each impressed by the other's determination and resilience. Amelia watched this development with a mixture of pride and fascination. This was exactly the kind of interspecies cooperation and understanding she had hoped the marathon would foster, though she hadn't expected it to happen quite like this. As she moved between checkpoints, Amelia found herself fielding questions from curious spectators, both human and Zephyrian. "Why are our runners slowing down?" a concerned Zephyrian asked. "Are they unwell?" Amelia took a moment to explain the concept of pacing and the physiology of long-distance running. The Zephyrians listened with rapt attention, their respect for the human runners growing as they began to understand the true nature of the challenge. Similarly, humans were amazed by the Zephyrians' ability to adapt so quickly to an entirely new form of physical exertion. "I've never seen anyone pick up proper marathon techniques so fast," one human spectator commented. "It's incredible." As the race entered its final third, the true test of endurance began. The course, which had been designed to showcase both human and Zephyrian areas of unity, now led the runners through more challenging terrain. Rolling hills and winding paths through the city's outskirts pushed both species to their limits. Amelia and Lyra worked tirelessly, monitoring the condition of all runners and ensuring that medical help was readily available when needed. Despite their preparations, they found themselves dealing with unique challenges as Zephyrian physiology reacted to the stress of the marathon in unexpected ways. "Their body temperature regulation is struggling," Lyra reported at one point, her normally calm voice tinged with worry. They'd never had to cool themselves over such a prolonged period of exertion before. Quick thinking and cooperation between human and Zephyrian medical staff led to innovative solutions. Cooling stations were quickly set up, using a combination of human and Zephyrian technology to help the alien runners regulate their body temperature. As the 30-kilometer mark approached, the race had become a true test of interspecies cooperation and mutual understanding. Humans and Zephyrians ran side by side, each learning from the other. Human runners shared their experience with pacing and mental strategies for pushing through fatigue, while Zephyrians offered insights into efficient movement and using their unique physiological advantages effectively. Zaxnell, who had managed to stay with the lead group, found himself running alongside Jake Torres. Despite the grueling nature of the race, they found the energy to exchange words of encouragement. "You humans," Zaxnell panted, a newfound respect in his voice, "are far more resilient than we ever imagined. This challenge, it's unlike anything we've faced before." Jake grinned through his exhaustion. "And you Zephyrians are quick learners. I've never seen anyone adapt to marathon running so fast. You're giving us a real run for our money." As they pushed each other forward, the true spirit of the interspecies marathon of unity shone through. It wasn't just a race anymore. It had become a shared journey of discovery, pushing the boundaries of what both species thought possible. From her position at the 30-kilometer checkpoint, Amelia watched the lead group approach, humans and Zephyrians, running as equals, each bringing their unique strengths to the challenge. A lump formed in her throat as she realized that her vision for the marathon had come to life in ways she never could have predicted. But the race was far from over. As the runners passed the 30-kilometer mark and entered the final quarter of the marathon, Amelia knew that the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The infamous wall that marathoners often hit around this point would test both species to their absolute limits. As she prepared to move to the next checkpoint, Amelia couldn't help but wonder, in these final, grueling kilometers, which would prove more valuable, the Zephyrians' natural physical advantages, or a human's long experience with endurance running? The answer, she realized, would likely shape the future of interspecies athletic competitions for years to come. With a mix of anticipation and nervousness, Amelia set off for the next checkpoint. The most crucial part of the interspecies marathon of unity was about to unfold, and she was determined to be there every step of the way. The final stretch. The sun hung low in the azure sky of Novaterra as the interspecies marathon of unity entered its final grueling phase. Dr. Amelia Chen stood at the 35-kilometer checkpoint, her eyes fixed on the approaching runners. The once clear divide between human and Zephyrian participants had blurred into a mixed group of determined athletes, each pushing their limits in ways neither species had anticipated. As the lead pack came into view, Amelia was struck by the transformation she witnessed. The Zephyrians, who had started the race with such confidence in their physical superiority, now wore expressions of intense concentration and fatigue that mirrored their human counterparts. Yet there was something else in their eyes, a fierce determination born from facing and overcoming an unprecedented challenge. Jake Torres and Zach Snell were still among the frontrunners, their earlier rivalry having evolved into a partnership of mutual respect and encouragement. As they approached the checkpoint, Amelia could see Jake speaking quietly to Zach Snell, likely sharing last-minute advice for the final stretch. "Dr. Chen," Zach Snell called out as they neared, his voice strained but resolute. "I believe I now understand the true nature of your marathon. It is far more than we ever imagined." Amelia nodded, a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. "You're doing incredibly well, both of you, but the hardest part is still to come. How are you feeling?" Jake, his face etched with exhaustion but eyes still bright, managed a grim smile. "We're about to hit the wall. Doc, time to see what we're really made of." As the two runners continued on, Amelia turned to Dr. Lyra, who was monitoring the biometric data of all participants. "How are they holding up?" Lyra's large eyes blinked rapidly as she processed the information. "It's fascinating, Dr. Chen. The Zephyrians' bodies are adapting in real time to this prolonged exertion. Their metabolic processes are shifting in ways we've never observed before. As for the humans, their endurance is remarkable. They're pushing physiological limits that even we thought impossible for their species." Amelia nodded, a sense of awe washing over her. This marathon had become far more than a cultural exchange or a sporting event. It was turning into a crucible of evolution, pushing both species to adapt and grow in real time. As the kilometers wore on, the true test of the marathon began to take its toll. Runners of both species began to falter, some slowing to a walk, others stopping entirely, their bodies unable to continue despite their iron wills. The medical teams, a mix of human and Zephyrian professionals, worked tirelessly to ensure the safety of all participants. At the 38-kilometer mark, Amelia witnessed a scene that would be etched in her memory forever. A human runner, her legs shaking with exhaustion, stumbled and nearly fell. Without hesitation, a Zephyrian runner slowed his pace, gently supporting her until she regained her footing. The human nodded her thanks, and together, they pressed on, Two beings from different worlds united in their struggle against their own physical limits. Similar scenes played out all along the course. Humans and Zephyrians encouraged each other, shared water and energy gels, and in some cases, quite literally supported one another as they pushed towards the finish line. The marathon had transcended competition, becoming a shared journey of discovery and mutual support. As the 40-kilometer mark approached, the race for first place had come down to a small group of elite runners from both species. Jake and Zach Snell were among them, their earlier camaraderie now tempered by the intensity of competition. Each step was a battle against screaming muscles and the temptation to give in to exhaustion. Amelia watched through binoculars as the lead pack entered the final stretch. The finish line was now visible in the distance, a shimmering holographic arch that spanned one of Unity's main boulevards. Thousands of spectators, human and Zephyrian alike, lined the streets, their cheers creating a wall of sound that seemed to push the runners forward. In those final 2 kilometers, the true spirit of humanity shone through. Despite their physical disadvantages, the human runners drew upon generations of marathon running heritage, tapping into reserves of determination and grit that left their Zephyrian competitors in awe. Jake Torres, his face a mask of pain and determination, began to pull ahead. Zach Snell, pushing himself beyond anything he had ever experienced, managed to keep pace. Side by side, human and Zephyrian sprinted towards the finish line, each step a defiance of their bodies' screams to stop. The crowd's roar reached a fever pitch as Jake and Zach Snell entered the final 100 meters. In that moment, it wasn't about who would win. It was about two beings from different worlds, pushing themselves to their absolute limits, united in their pursuit of excellence. With a final burst of speed that left spectators of both species in awe, Jake and Zach Snell crossed the finish line simultaneously, their arms raised in shared triumph. As they collapsed into each other's arms, gasping for breath, the significance of the moment was lost on no one. This wasn't just the end of a race. It was the beginning of a new era of interspecies understanding and respect. Amelia rushed to the finish line, her heart pounding with emotion. As she approached Jake and Zach Snell, she saw in their exhausted but jubilant faces the embodiment of everything she had hoped this marathon would achieve. "Congratulations, both of you," she said, her voice thick with pride. "You've made history today." Jake, still catching his breath, managed a tired grin. "Doc, I've run marathons all over Earth, but nothing compares to this." Zach Snell, his iridescent skin glistening with exertion, nodded in agreement. "Dr. Chen, I owe you an apology. We greatly underestimated the challenge of your marathon. But in doing so, we've gained a new respect, not just for this event, but for humanity itself." As more runners crossed the finish line, each one welcomed by cheers from both species, Amelia felt a profound sense of accomplishment wash over her. The interspecies marathon of unity had lived up to its name in ways she never could have predicted. Humans had showcased their incredible endurance and indomitable spirit, earning the respect and admiration of their Zephyrian hosts. The Zephyrians, in turn, had demonstrated their remarkable adaptability and determination, pushing through a challenge unlike anything in their evolutionary history. But perhaps most importantly, both species had learned the value of cooperation, mutual support, and shared struggle. As Amelia watched humans and Zephyrians celebrating together, exchanging stories of their shared ordeal, she knew that the impact of this day would extend far beyond the world of sports. The marathon had started as a simple foot race, but it had become a powerful symbol of what could be achieved when two species came together, each bringing their unique strengths to overcome a common challenge. As the twin suns of Novaterra began to set, casting a golden glow over the celebrating crowd, Amelia Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. Today, on a distant planet, humanity had proven its worth not through technology or warfare, but through the simple, profound act of putting one foot in front of the other, again and again, until the impossible became possible. And in doing so, They had forged a bond with their alien hosts that no treaty or diplomatic agreement could have achieved. As the last of the runners crossed the finish line, greeted by cheers just as enthusiastic as those for the winners, Amelia knew that this was only the beginning. The interspecies marathon of unity had opened up a new chapter in human-Zephyrian relations, one that promised a future of shared challenges, mutual respect, and collective triumph. With a smile, she turned to face the setting suns, ready to embrace whatever new adventures this brave new world had in store.